signal to rocket in case it critical important safety component. The bottom line of all this is, at this moment, the range is no-go, not stopping us from moving forward in the countdown. We can continue to process and work the countdown. The closeout crew, the launch team will continue to do their work as well. We're just getting an update. I was about to report out on the range, and the good news is the range is go.
Live inside of the White Room at the launch pad, the closeout crew has closed abort system hatch. You saw there, we took it live. Took a lot of them. I think all of them. Except for one. I think it's hatch door closed. And then they felt around the perimeter of the door to make sure.
The launch team is working that was reported out with the last. At least there's an issue apparently with a battery on the LAS. The engineer who is in charge of the launch abort system sits on console here, reported that a temperature for one of the two LAS batteries is out, and although it's not a constraint for launch right now, it would be when that temperature is checked inside of T-minus 6 minutes, which count. So right now the team is working some troubleshooting on this issue. Going to follow, of course, with what they learn. But again, a battery temp for one of the two batteries on the LAS is out of spec, and the team is working to understand, first of all, whether an issue or is there an issue with the battery itself.
For one big NASA team, one big NASA family, and we have one major message before we launch. Okay, guys, what are we going to say? 1, 2, 3.
Great news too. Remember, the team was tracking an issue with the launch abort system battery. They appear to have cleared that issue, so we are go for launch.
All right, then, Nicole, and just want to give you an update on the launch abort system that they cleared. They believe, they're convinced this is so there are two batteries on the LAS. The LAS, of course, and with the help of my 2-year-old son's model rocket, Daniel said I could use this, so it's okay. The LAS is right here. It's the Orion capsules inside of here. It's used to pull Orion off the rocket in case the rocket something's going on with the rocket, either on the pad or in flight. Two batteries had, reported an out-of-family temperature, and it was very much out of family. And so they checked their data going back into the vehicle assembly building, where they recharged the batteries and worked on them. And they have good, solid data, they reported, that tells them that there's something wrong with the sensor. And so they took it before the mission management team, which to launch commit criteria, which this would be one, and they all fully accepted it. So now we are clear as that constraint is concerned.
NTD COSE hold requested.
Copy that.
I have an LCC violation of O4 S-band transponder anomaly. This was a transient LCC violation, so transponder 1 had a demodulated SNR estimate, dBm, when it should have been between 10 and 13. It is now back up to 12, but we did lose that for just a moment. It does not appear that we lost our carrier lock, which would be indicative that we lost our lock with the vehicle. Recommendation would still be go. However, we do have a if we want to look at that. But again, this is transient, so we're back in a nominal range.
Yeah, us taking a look at the data right here, looks like that was a single sample.
Yeah, copy that. RFTS does report that they also lost lock for about 5 seconds. So I would love to ask KUS and see if they also lost lock with the vehicle for any extended amount of period.
Yeah, so from our perspective, the allowance is effectively up to 30 seconds, up to 3 samples based on the 1/10 hertz. This is not an LCC violation, I believe.
Yes, sir. I would agree with that at this point. Copy that.
We're checking with KUS on 232. I don't think they have 212 access. We're trying to verify, but it sounds like they have a loss of lock as well. About 2 seconds.
Okay. And I guess for both KUS and COSE, do we have lock now?
That's affirmed. We do have lock for COSE.
Yeah, so from the integration console perspective, we did have a temporary loss there within the allowable, and per the requirement, let's go.
This is Houston Flight. We have lock and we have good telemetry here in GSE.
And KUS is reported to they have good lock now. So with all of that, OSC, then are we in a go configuration per your LCC?
Yes, sir. Recommendation would be go.
Okay. LP, you concur with that?
Yes, sir. LP concurs go.
And Launch Director?
Yes, sir. Launch Director concurs go.
All right. And for all personnel, this is the NTD conducting the Artemis II launch readiness check. Verify ready to resume count and go for launch. OTC?
OTC is go.
STC?
STC is go.
GTC?
C's go.
MCO?
CO's go.
Safety Console?
The Safety Console is go.
LPE?
LP's go.
RTD?
RTD's go.
Houston Flight?
Houston Flight is go.
ROC?
ROC is go.
And CDR?
Crews go.
Copy that. Thank you, Reed. And Launch Director, NTD, our launch team is ready to proceed at this time.
All right, NTD, I copy all. At this time, I'll perform my poll. Attention on the net. This is the Launch Director performing the final poll for launch. Verify no constraints and go for launch. EGS, Program Chief Engineer.
Artemis Chief Engineers are go.
Copy, thank you. EGS, Chief Safety Officer.
The Artemis CSOs are go.
Copy, thank you. Range Weather.
Launch weather is go.
Thank you, LWO. And Artemis MMT Chair.
MMTs go.
Thank you, John. And Integrity Launch Director.
Good air voice, Charlie. PLT.
Thank you, Charlie. This is Victor. We are going for our families.
MS1.
This is Christina. We are going for our teammates.
MS2. This is Jeremy. We are going for all humanity. All right, Charlie, your Artemis II crew is go for launch. Full send.
I copy that. Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy. On this historic mission, you take with you the heart of this Artemis team, the daring spirit of the American people and our partners across the globe, and the hopes and dreams of a new generation. Good luck. Godspeed, Artemis II. Let's go. Sir, you have a go to proceed with countdown.
Copy that. I'll put it in work. CDR, NTD.
Go.
Your visors and initiate short purge per your EPROC 10.1.1, steps 8 and 9.
10.1.1, 8 and 9 going to work.
Copy. CVSE, NTD. Start and verify recordings of our Orion cameras.
You heard an issue, worked in real time with telemetry lock on the Orion. It was transitory. It was very short. They checked the data, confirmed that they had a good lock. This was with the S-band transmitter on the Orion. Worked through that issue, looked at the data, and cleared it. All with the world watching.
All right, and we're clear from cutouts. And with that, we're going to resume the clock momentarily. And CGLS, you can resume the clock on your mark.
GLS copies. 3, 2, 1, mark. GLS mainline has been initiated.
T-minus 10 minutes and counting.
And that begins terminal count. Our new T0 is 6:35 p.m. Eastern Time. 6:35 p.m. Eastern Time. We are now counting down to liftoff of Artemis II.
GLS is go for crew access arm retract.
And there you see the crew access arm moving away.
GLS is go for ALS.
Great call out. The rocket is on its own. 4 brave explorers ready to ride the most powerful rocket NASA has ever launched. Sound suppression water is flowing.
15.
And here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7. RS-25 engines lit. 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition. And liftoff. The crew of Artemis II now bound for the moon. Humanity's next great voyage begins.
Good roll pitch.
Roger, roll pitch.
Houston, now controlling the flight of Integrity on the Artemis II mission around the moon.
Integrity, AMT high.
AMT high.
On time, passing 30 seconds into the flights. Integrity passes the alternate beacon. Target milestone. Mission Control Houston seeing good performance on the 4 main engines. Space Launch System core stage. Integrity, 3 miles in altitude. Traveling more than 1,200 miles per hour. Mission elapsed time, passing 1 minute, approaching max Q.
On, Ponce de Leon.
Stan, we have you loud and clear on Ponce de Leon.
Have you the same.
Communication signal transfer confirmed as Integrity and its crew go supersonic. Approaching 90 seconds into the Artemis II mission. Integrity is 14 miles in altitude, 8 miles downrange, traveling more than 2,600 miles per hour. Minute 50 seconds of mission elapsed time, standing by for main engine throttle down to 85%, ahead of solid rocket booster separation expected at the 2-minute 9-second mark. We see throttle down. Confirmed separation. Main engine's throttling up, guidance converged.
Integrity, guidance converged, performance nominal, upper stage RCS ready.
Copy all, Stan.
Integrity, SM priming complete.
SM priming complete.
3 minutes into the flight. Integrity, 49 miles in altitude, 78 miles downrange, now passing 5,000 miles per hour. Standing by for launch abort system jettison.
Houston Integrity, good last jettison, great view. We see the same on board, Stan.
And Houston has you loud and clear on TDRS at the Kármán line.
Outstanding, Stan, we have you the same.
3 minutes 50 seconds into the flight of Artemis II, Wiseman, Glover, Cook, and Hansen cross the boundary to space with good comm checks. GPS signals acquired after last jettison now working on internal checks to verify accuracy.
Integrity, GPS processing.
Outstanding, Stan. We see the same, and we have a beautiful moonrise. We're headed right at it.
Integrity and nominal MECO, core stage separated.
We see the same on board, Stan.
Nine minutes of mission elapsed time. Integrity crew of Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen now in orbit around the Earth at the beginning of their journey to the Moon. This is Mission Control Houston, 25 minutes, 45 seconds into the flight of Artemis II. We have confirmation that all 4 solar array wings are deployed and latched. This is the configuration needed to switch to ATO preferred, which you did hear confirmed from pilot Victor Glover. That mode has been switched. Now getting our first views from one of the solar array wing cameras over the tracking and data relay satellites. We are in a night pass as we are about a little more than 1,300 statute miles above the Earth, just east off the coast of Madagascar. You can see the Perigee raise maneuver from the main engine of the ICPS firing from the solar array wing. Standing by for confirmation of cutoff.
Integrity, good PRM, and 1 minute to Teeter's handover.
And with the regain of comm, we're starting to get some views aboard the Orion spacecraft.
Integrity Houston, voice check on Teeter's.
Loud and clear, Stan Hollis.
And we now have you the same. Good to hear your voice.
In the meantime, Mission Specialist Christina Cook working on the activation of some environmental control life support systems and waste management systems. Currently, as teams on the ground analyze some troubleshooting of the activation steps that she was going through, she'll gather some of the backup waste management capabilities that they have aboard Integrity, just as a precaution while the teams assess how to address what was reported down from Mission Specialist Christina Cook on the fault light. At this time, the flight dynamics officer confirms that it was a good burn, so they are on a good trajectory for staying in high Earth orbit for the remainder of this flight day and into next. The high Earth orbit puts them into a 43,730 by 0 statute mile orbit, which orbits the Earth approximately once a day. It's a 23.5-hour orbit.
For the first time since they arrived in space, you're looking at a live view of the Artemis II crew in the Orion spacecraft.
All right, Amy, welcome on board the Integrity spacecraft. We got, right now, myself and Christina are in seats 1 and 2, getting ready for rendezvous and proxops demonstration. Victor's just finishing up getting out of suits and getting suit drying going, and Jeremy is hard at work in cabin configuration. It was an amazing ride uphill. The views, we've got 2 moon rises that we've had so far, and the views of planet Earth. We've circled it completely, and we forgot how beautiful it is to look down on Earth.
We're hearing some comms from the crew as they're preparing for their proximity operations demonstration. And we have just had, for the first time in over 50 years, humans join the Deep Space Network. Now, we're used to people being on the Near Space Network, the Tracking Data Relay Satellite System with the International Space Station. But again, first time in 50 years that we will have crew traveling far enough to be on that Deep Space Network. This view coming live from Orion, now just 3 hours and 10 minutes since liftoff today from Kennedy Space Center. As you have heard, Mission Control Houston is go for the crew to conduct the proximity operations demonstration. Again, we will see the separation of the interim cryogenic propulsion stage coming up first in just under 12 minutes. Standing by for separation.
We have good separation, good motion. We are ATP go.
Confirmation, separation from the interim cryogenic propulsion stage.
Good motion. Go for 180 pitch, confirmed. Separation confirmed, Houston.
Houston copies.
All right, here comes the pitch rate. I see it. Look at that. Woohoo!
This view inside Orion.
I see the moon in the camera, and now I see ICPS in the docking camera field of view. Okay, waiting for 550. I'm on the THC. There's 550, starting the 19N. 1.
This is the view from
9. And
this is the view arrow. The docking camera is showing the crew inside Orion.
19 ends. Much quieter. Got a little rumble like we're driving on a rocky road, but much quieter than in the sim. I'm showing about 3 degrees wide on ICPS. And it's holding right near the center.
Integrity, no action for you on that enable prop caution.
No action.
Of ICPS, did you see that photo off the screen on camera view? 0.8 degrees wide. At large. All right, I'm going to course. 9 degrees. 1 degree wide. Here comes 6 outs. 1, 2, 3, 8 down pulses.
Great view of the ICPS that powered Orion during the Perigee raise maneuver and apogee raise burn.
4, 5, 8. I can see the side docking target. That is a good looking American flag. Wow. Copy. Going off, Fox. Great flying with you, Houston. Nice vehicle.
Great job, Victor, and to the entire crew, and we enjoyed your excitement at seeing ICPS out the window.
With proximity operations complete and the upper stage separation burn complete as well, we are now looking to the ICPS, or interim cryogenic propulsion stage disposal burn. We will not see this or get data on it. It will burn up upon re-entry over Earth's atmosphere over the Pacific Ocean. That actually looks like a crescent Earth there in the background. This view coming from one of the solar array wing cameras aboard Orion. And this is Mission Control Houston, live from the Artemis Flight Control Room. We are now about 11 hours and 58 minutes into the Artemis II mission, following a launch yesterday, April 1st at 5:35 p.m. Central, 6:35 p.m. Eastern. And there you are seeing a live view outside the Orion spacecraft from one of its solar array wing or SAW cameras. And you can see the Earth in the background with a bit of an eclipse there. The crew is expected to wake up in about 30 minutes. They've been in their sleep period for about 3.5 hours now. Their sleep shift is split today so that they can complete the Perigee raise burn in the middle of that sleep shift. That Perigee raise burn, or PRB burn, is scheduled to start in about an hour and 33 minutes from now. This is Mission Control Houston. You are continuing to see live views from the Orion spacecraft's solar array wing or SAW cameras. The spacecraft has 4 total solar array wings on the service module. Each solar array is made of 3 panels, and the length of each wing is nearly 23 feet, or about 7 meters long. The 4 solar arrays are used to convert light into electricity, and they can turn on 2 axes to remain aligned with the sun for maximum power. And that view that you're currently seeing from those cameras on the solar array wings, looking back at Earth, a little bit of a crescent Earth in that eclipse. Currently on board the Orion spacecraft, which is named Integrity, is the Artemis II crew. The Artemis II crew is comprised of NASA astronaut and commander Reed Wiseman, NASA astronaut and pilot Victor Glover, and then the mission specialists are NASA astronaut Christina Cook and Canadian Space Agency or CSA astronaut Jeremy Hansen. Artemis II is NASA's first crewed test flight in the Artemis program, and that quad of 4 astronauts make up the crew aboard the Orion spacecraft. That crew has been asleep for a little over 3.5 hours now, and they will be woken up in about 15 minutes or so to then prepare for the Perigee raise burn or PRB operations. And that burn is scheduled to take place in about an hour and 20 minutes from now. The Orion spacecraft lifted off atop the SLS, or Space Launch System rocket, from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida yesterday, April 1st at 5:35 p.m. Central, 6:35 p.m. Eastern. Following launch, the SLS rocket placed the Orion spacecraft into orbit, and the crew completed 2 laps around Earth, checking out the spacecraft while still close to home. Orion then entered a high Earth orbit and separated from the Interim Cryogenic Propulsion Stage, or ICPS, and completed the proximity operations demonstration by practicing maneuvers that will be essential for future docking in lunar orbit. The Artemis II mission aboard the Orion spacecraft is designed to help confirm that the Orion systems work and are designed for crew in deep space. Again, the crew is currently asleep, but they will be awoken here shortly, as they will then step into operations to prepare for the Perigee raise burn. That Perigee raise burn will adjust Orion's perigee, or the lowest point of its orbit, into the correct orbital geometry to set it up for its translunar injection, or TLI burn, which is planned for Flight Day 2. Following the Perigee raise burn, the crew will perform a brief checkout of their emergency communications on the deep space network at the most distant point of their high Earth orbit, which is necessary before completing that TLI burn tomorrow. And after that emergency communications checkout is complete, the crew will then resume their sleep period, and they will get another about 4 hours of sleep before they begin their Flight Day 2. This is Mission Control Houston, live in the Artemis Flight Control Room as we continue to provide live continuous coverage of the Artemis II mission following the liftoff of the Space Launch System, or SLS, rocket and the Orion spacecraft yesterday, April 1st at 5:35 p.m. Central, 6:35 p.m. Eastern. We're now about 12 hours and 20 minutes into the Artemis II mission. The crew is currently asleep, but they are scheduled to be awoken in a little less than 5 minutes from now to prepare for the Perigee raise burn. And this burn is an additional engine firing to get Orion into the correct orbital geometry for its translunar injection burn. And that translunar injection burn is scheduled to take place on flight day 2, and that is the last major engine firing of the mission. It will propel Orion on a path towards the moon and set it on its free return trajectory that will ultimately bring the Artemis II crew and the Orion spacecraft back to Earth for splashdown. So though it's only 2 days into the mission, the TLI burn essentially doubles as Orion's deorbit burn. After that TLI burn takes place, there will be 3 smaller outbound trajectory correction burns, or OTC burns, that will use Orion's Orbital Maneuvering System engine, which you can actually see there on your screen. It's that larger engine in the center of the Orion spacecraft service module. And those views that you're seeing on your screen are live views coming from the solar array wing, or SAW cameras on the Orion spacecraft. So again, those smaller outbound trajectory correction burns will use that OMS, or Orbital Maneuvering System engine, over the course of the 3 days following the TLI burn, which is scheduled for flight day 2. And so those correction burns ensure that the spacecraft stays on target for its journey around the moon. And then just before the crew goes to sleep on flight day 5, they will enter the lunar sphere of influence, which is when the pull of the moon's gravity will become stronger than the pull of the Earth's gravity. And then on flight day 6, we will have the lunar flyby, which is when the crew will go around the far side of the moon and observe with human eyes the features on that far side of the moon. And it'll also be when they make the closest approach to the moon for this mission. And then after they complete that lunar flyby, they will begin their return back to Earth. Again, we are standing by for that crew wake a couple minutes from now, so that they can then begin preparing for that Perigee raise burn. That Perigee raise burn is scheduled to take place in about an hour and 9 minutes from now.
Everything is going like the beat. 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 You said what's like fire around the brim, burning solid, burning thin, the burning rim, like the stars burning holes right through the dark, flicking fire like salt water to my eyes. You were 1 inch from the edge of this bed. I track you back. Lead me
And this is Mission Control Houston. You just heard the wake up song that was played up to the crew. These songs were selected by the crew. They coordinated with the Capcom or capsule communicators for the Artemis II mission to select the songs that will play for each of their wake up periods. So throughout the mission, every time the crew is woken up, you will hear a little clip of a different song each day. And that tradition of wake-up music does date back all the way to the Apollo era. Now that the crew is awake, they are going to step into a brief post-sleep period. And then they will begin preparing for the Perigee raise burn, or PRB burn. That burn is scheduled to take place in just under an hour from now, about 59 minutes until that burn ignition start. This is Mission Control Houston from the Artemis Mission Control Room. The crew of the Artemis II mission aboard the Orion spacecraft was recently awoken with some wake-up music. They're currently in a brief post-sleep period, and then they will begin preparing for the Perigee raise burn. That Perigee raise burn is scheduled to take place in about 54 minutes from now. There on your screen in the top left, you can see the Artemis real-time orbital website, and this provides the real-time data and telemetry from the Orion spacecraft when we don't have live views outside of the spacecraft itself. The Orion spacecraft following a liftoff on top of the Space Launch System, or SLS rocket, yesterday, April 1st at 5:35 p.m. Central, 6:35 p.m. Eastern, is now in a high Earth orbit. It is about 43,000 miles away from Earth. For reference, the International Space Station is in low Earth orbit and is typically about 260 statute miles away from Earth at any given time. In the bottom right hand of your screen, you can see a view of the Artemis Flight Control Room here in Mission Control Houston. Currently on console here in the Artemis Flight Control Room is the Orbit 2 team of flight controllers. Similar to the International Space Station Flight Control Room, the Artemis Flight Control Room will be monitored and manned 24/7. There will be 3 orbits of flight controllers for the duration of the Artemis II mission. Those 3 shifts are known as orbits. So the Orbit 1 shift came on console following the ascent of the SLS rocket and the Orion spacecraft, and then they handed over to the Orbit 2 team of flight controllers at about 2:30 a.m. Central, 3:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And then shortly after the Perigee raise burn, or PRB burn is complete, the Orbit 3 team of flight controllers will come on console and take the crew through the remainder of their sleep period before they enter into Flight Day 2 and prepare for the TLI, or translunar injection burn, which will send Orion and its crew around the moon and back. Again, we are standing by and preparing for that Perigee raise burn. That Perigee raise burn expected to take place in about 51 minutes from now. This is Mission Control Houston, live from the Artemis Flight Control Room. The Orbit 2 team of flight controllers is currently being led by Flight Director Paul Kanya. The Artemis II crew aboard the Orion spacecraft named Integrity is currently awake in a post-sleep period, and then they will begin preparing for the Perigee raise burn or PRB operations. In preparation for that burn, again, that burn is scheduled to take place in about 41 minutes. There are going to be some star-fueled maneuvers that take place, and these maneuvers are managed by the GNC, or Guidance, Navigation, and Control Officer here in the Artemis Flight Control Room. This console is responsible for managing inertial measuring units, global positioning system receivers, barometric altimeters, and the position, state, and attitude health of the Orion spacecraft. And they are also responsible for commanding attitude maneuvers. On your screen, you are seeing views from the Artemis Real-Time Orbit website, or AROW, A-R-O-W. And this website is available to the public on nasa.gov, and we will provide views from this data and telemetry site when we don't have live views from the cameras on board the Orion spacecraft. So currently, the Orion spacecraft is about 43,000 miles from Earth and about 223 miles away from the moon. This is following a launch yesterday, April 1st at 5:35 p.m. Central, 6:35 p.m. Eastern. As the spacecraft completes some of those starfield maneuvers in preparation for the Perigee raise burn in about 40 minutes from now, the spacecraft is using its guidance, navigation, and control system to complete those maneuvers, and that system on board Orion is responsible for knowing where the spacecraft is and where it is going, and controls the propulsion system to keep Orion pointed in the proper direction and on the correct trajectory. There are several different guidance, navigation, and control systems that can be used on Orion. It does have a star tracker system, and the star tracker operates like a camera but is very sensitive and takes pictures only of stars. And by comparing the pictures to a known star catalog, the sensor determines spacecraft attitude during orbital operations. Once those starfield maneuvers are complete, there will be some final burn targeting that will take place to ensure that the spacecraft is in the proper attitude. For the Perigee raise burn, that final burn targeting is slated to take place in about 8 minutes from now.
Houston Integrity, good morning. We are with you for PRB Ops.
And Integrity and Christina, good morning to y'all as well. Things are progressing well with PRB Ops. We can do a quick tag up here shortly once we get our story ready.
That sounds good. In the meantime, none of us have a PRB burn pad. Is that expected?
That is expected. We are in the process of uplinking a burn pad right now, and the burn pad will be labeled with a version 2. I'll let you know when we think it's on board.
Copy.
And this is Mission Control Houston. You just heard a little bit of communication there on the Orion to Earth loop, and that is the voice link between the ground and the Orion spacecraft. So that was NASA astronaut Christina Cook, who is one of the mission specialists aboard the Orion spacecraft. Again, there are 4 crew members currently living and working on the Orion spacecraft as part of the Artemis II mission. So Christina was speaking directly with the team here in Mission Control Houston, specifically the CAPCOM or capsule communicator, and that flight control position serves as the direct voice link between the crew and the ground. And during that conversation, Christina did ask about a burn pad, and these are plans for each burn that are uplinked to the crew so that they can follow along with the execution steps, and they know exactly what the ground is following along with, and they can also follow along with the same plan. Again, that PRB or Perigee raise burn is scheduled to take place in about 34 minutes. And coming up here shortly, the mission control team here in Houston will do their go, no-go poll for that PRB burn.
Houston integrity for cabin temps.
Hey, go ahead, Christina.
Yes, it is very cold in the cabin. Any chance you can make it warmer or reduce the cabin fan speed a bit more so the ventilation is not blowing as hard?
Checking. Yeah, Christina, understand. While y'all were asleep, we did turn one of our knobs that we have, and that was the rad loop set points, and we saw a very small increase in the temperature. And so we're going to take a look at some of these shell heaters, and we'll let you know when we start putting some of that in work, and we can see if that affects the temperature in a positive way.
Thank you, Mike.
Also, Christina, when y'all get a chance up there, we'd appreciate an AGA reading.
Copy, we'll get on that now. Speaking of post-sleep duties, we did check the avatar lights. It was 8 LEDs on in the top row, 7 in the bottom.
Integrity, Huntsville on Orion to Earth 1, we copy for Avatar. That's a good config. Thanks.
And Integrity Houston, the burn pad
Copy,
is...
and hello, Huntsville.
The burn pad is now available on the PCDs, should be version 2, and we'll be ready for a conference whenever you are.
We see it, and give us a few.
This is Mission Control Houston, and you just heard quite a bit of communication between NASA astronaut Christina Cook on board the Orion spacecraft and the Capcom or capsule communicator here in Mission Control Houston. You also heard a little bit of communication with one of the flight controllers at the Huntsville Mission Control Center, and that is in Huntsville, Alabama. That is the Payload Operations Integration Center, and they're typically responsible for managing science payloads. They were talking briefly about the Avatar, and that is a science investigation that is flying as part of the Artemis II mission. Avatar stands for a Virtual Astronaut Tissue Analog Response, and this investigation will use organ-on-a-chip devices, or organ chips, to study the effects of increased radiation and microgravity on human health. Currently, the team here in Mission Control Houston continues to prepare for the Perigee raise burn scheduled to take place in about 29 minutes from now. The final targeting for that burn is currently underway.
Ready for the conference. Also, are we go to start our targeting, our final targeting at this time?
All right, Christina, for final targeting, that has just been completed. We had it automated on board. We're taking a look at the results, and the results are good. As for the burn conference, I have no comments for y'all. You do see the yellows on the burn pad, but that was just a delta from version 1, which y'all don't have, so you can disregard the color coding.
Okay, great. We just saw that final targeting come in as well, and the UTC of ground generation in the files we have is April 2, 26, time 10:20.
That's the correct version.
Excellent. Anything else for us in the burn conference?
And nothing else from us, Christina.
All right, with that, we will continue executing.
And this is Mission Control Houston. That conversation there, again, between NASA astronaut Christina Cook and the Capcom or capsule communicator here in Mission Control Houston inside the Artemis flight control room. That was the final burn conference ahead of the PRB or Perigee raise burn, and those burn conferences typically take place ahead of any burn during the mission to ensure that the crew on board the Orion spacecraft and the team here in Mission Control Houston are on the same page and that there are no questions or updates that need to be communicated ahead of those burns. Again, that perigee raise burn is scheduled to take place in about 27 minutes from now.
Integrity, Huntsville on Orion to Earth 1 for Avatar.
Go ahead for Avatar.
Yes, Integrity. Just wanted to get some clarity on which LED was not illuminated. There should be a number underneath or above the LED. Just need to get the number of that LED that is not illuminated. Copy 16-1. Copy 16-16. Thank you.
Affirmative, thank you.
And this is Mission Control Houston. Again, you were hearing some additional communication between the crew on board the Orion spacecraft. That Orion spacecraft was named Integrity by the crew, so you will often hear the teams on the ground calling up to Orion. They will refer to it as Integrity, and when the crew on board Orion is calling down, they will typically call down to Houston. During that brief communication, though, the crew, namely NASA astronaut Reed Wiseman, was actually communicating with the Mission Control Center in Huntsville, Alabama, at the Marshall Space Flight Center. That is specifically the Payload Operations Integration Center, and they are responsible for conducting end-to-end mission operations for science payloads specifically. So they were having a brief discussion about one of the science payloads on board the Artemis II mission, known as the Avatar. And the Avatar is, it stands for a virtual astronaut tissue analog response, and it is an investigation that is using organ chips to study the effects of radiation and microgravity on human health. This specific study could provide valuable information for developing measures to protect astronaut health on their journeys, such as personalized medical kits. Again, the crew and the team here in Mission Control Houston continue to prepare for the upcoming Perigee raise burn. That Perigee raise burn is scheduled to take place in about 23 minutes. The Perigee raise burn will adjust Orion's perigee, or the lowest point of its orbit, into the correct orbital geometry, to then set it up for its translunar injection, or TLI burn, which is planned for Flight Day 2. After the Perigee raise burn, or PRB burn, is completed in about 23 minutes from now, the crew on board the Orion spacecraft will perform a brief checkout of their emergency communications on the Deep Space Network once they are at the most distant point of their high Earth orbit, which is necessary before that TLI burn. And then after that emergency communications checkout is complete, the crew will then resume their sleep period. Again, their sleep period for today was actually split into two parts, about 4 hours for each part of their sleep period, in order to complete the Perigee raise burn that is scheduled for about 22 minutes from now.
Houston, Integrity for burn, pad, and plan deltas.
Go ahead, Christina.
Hey, Mike, two small items. The trim limit on the burn pad is 0.2. On the plan, we see 0.1. And second item, Our burn pad has a predicted EI time. Can you verify we can ignore that for now?
All right, Christina, you can ignore the EI time. We're checking on the term.
Okay, good readback. And with that, our next check with you is for your go, no-go confirmation.
And Christina, Houston is go for the burn.
Integrity copies.
All right, Christina, and you are correct. Trim limit is 0.1.
Copy, thank you.
This is Mission Control Houston, and we do have confirmation that the team here in the Artemis Flight Control team, or in the Artemis Flight Control room, are go for the Perigee raise burn. That burn expected to take place in about 20 minutes from now. There was some additional discussion between the Capcom or capsule communicator here in Mission Control and NASA astronaut Christina Cook, currently on board the Orion spacecraft. They were talking about some of the data that is in the burn pad. Again, that is a plan that is uplinked to the crew ahead of any burn to ensure that the crew and the team here on the ground are on the same page about the specifics of that burn. Currently on your screen, you're seeing a look at the Artemis real-time orbit website, or AROW, A-R-O-W. That website is available to the public on nasa.gov throughout the duration of the mission, and we provide those live views here on our continuous coverage feed when we don't have live camera views from the Orion spacecraft itself. But this view provides the live data and telemetry coming from the Orion spacecraft. So currently the Orion spacecraft is about 43,000 miles from Earth, and then it has about 223,000 miles to go until it gets to the moon. Again, this comes following a liftoff yesterday at 5:35 p.m. Central Time, 6:35 p.m. Eastern Time. The Orion spacecraft lifted off atop that SLS, or Space Launch System rocket, from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Since that liftoff, about 13 hours and 14 minutes ago, the crew has completed a proximity operations, or ProxOps demonstration, after the ICPS, or interim cryogenic propulsion system, separated from the Orion spacecraft. The crew on board the Orion spacecraft used the ICPS as a docking target to practice those manual maneuvers. And then a little bit after that was completed, the crew did enter their sleep period, again about a 4-hour sleep period, before they were awoken about 45 minutes ago to complete the Perigee raise burn operations coming up here shortly. This is Mission Control Houston as the Orion spacecraft and its crew, along with the team here in Mission Control Houston inside the Artemis Flight Control Room, continue to prepare for the upcoming Perigee raise burn, slated to take place in about 15 minutes from now. The solar array wings on the Orion spacecraft, or the SAW, are now in position for that burn. The Orion spacecraft has 4 total solar array wings on the service module. Each solar array is made of 3 panels, and the length of each wing is nearly 23 feet long, or about 7 meters long. These 4 solar arrays are used to convert light into electricity, and they can turn on 2 axes to remain aligned with the sun for maximum power. And on that visualization there in the center of your screen, you can see those 4 solar array wings on the Orion spacecraft.
Integrity Houston, the solar arrays are in position for the burn.
Integrity copies.
Integrity Houston, less than a minute to the burn attitude maneuver.
Okay, we copy that.
And good morning, Jeremy, and also the tank pressures are good for the burn.
Okay, we copy that.
This is Mission Control Houston, again hearing some continued communication from the crew on board the Orion spacecraft. That Orion spacecraft currently in a high Earth orbit, preparing for its Perigee raise burn in about 11 minutes from now. The team here in Mission Control Houston calling up to the crew through the Capcom or capsule communicator position, confirming that the Orion spacecraft is in the correct attitude for that burn. The attitude is the orientation or the pointing direction of the spacecraft. and it is determined by 3 different rotational axes known as pitch, roll, and yaw. And it is important to ensure that the spacecraft is in the correct attitude prior to the upcoming perigee raise burn, but also in preparation for any of the burns.
Integrity Houston, we see y'all in the burn attitude.
And we see the same.
This is Mission Control Houston. We are about 5 minutes away from the Perigee raise burn. That burn expected to last about 1 minute and 4 seconds. We just heard confirmation from the Capcom, or capsule communicator, here in Mission Control Houston, up to NASA astronaut Christina Cook on board the Orion spacecraft, confirming that the Orion spacecraft is in the correct attitude for the upcoming Perigee raise burn. And the spacecraft attitude refers to the orientation or the pointing direction of the spacecraft. And this is Mission Control Houston. We are about 1 minute out from the Perigee raise burn. Again, that burn expected to last about 1 minute, and that burn will raise the Perigee, or the highest point of Orion's orbit. Apologies. The burn will adjust Orion's perigee or the lowest point of its orbit into the correct orbital geometry to set it up for its translator injection or TLI burn. Again, that TLI burn is planned for flight day 2. After the perigee raise burn is completed in just a few moments, the crew will then step in to perform a brief checkout of their emergency communications system on the Deep Space Network. After that checkout is complete, they will then prepare for their sleep period, which will then last about another 4 hours. And that perigee raise burn is now underway. And there on your screen, you can see the 8 pulse-X engines on the Orion spacecraft. Now this is a visualization of the Orion spacecraft, as we don't currently have live views from the spacecraft itself, but this uses the data and telemetry from the spacecraft. Again, this perigee raise burn expected to last about a minute. Currently, everything is proceeding as planned. And we do have confirmation that that burn is complete. It was a good burn.
We're tracking a good burn.
And we see the same and with a bonus trim burn.
And you just heard confirmation from NASA astronaut Christina Cook and the Capcom or capsule communicator here on the ground in Mission Control Houston that we did have a good perigee raise burn. That burn lasted about 50 seconds using the 8 pulse-X engines on the Orion spacecraft service module. And there on your screen, you are seeing a live view of the Orion spacecraft from one of its solar array wing cameras. And you can also see another one of the solar array wings on the bottom right hand of your screen from the Orion spacecraft. Again, this live view comes following that perigee raise burn. And there in the distance, now just going off of the screen, we did see a distant view of the moon following that perigee raise burn coming from that solar array wing camera. Again, the Orion spacecraft is currently about 220,000.
And good morning, Victor. We'll take those readings.
Good morning, Mike. You have CO2 2.8. O2 19.0, 68.1 degrees, 14.55 psi.
All right, Victor, we copy all. Really appreciate it.
Happy to help.
Houston, integrity. We would like to ask you to finish up step 23 of orbit burn execution for us, if that's okay, so we can get position for the EMERCOM check.
Definitely, Christina. We'll take care of the rest of 23.
Thank you.
This is Mission Control Houston. Over the past few minutes, there have been various communications between the crew on board the Orion spacecraft and the team here in Mission Control Houston. One of the first calls we heard was from NASA astronaut Victor Glover, who was reporting some of the AGA, or anomaly gas analyzer readings. The AGA is a portable laser-based instrument that detects trace contaminants aboard Orion.
EMERCOM checkout, just confirm you are handling step 1 of 21.2.8.
And good morning, Reed. Yes, we are taking care of step 1, and in step 2, the antenna will be number 3.
Copy 3.
And this is Mission Control Houston. The crew is now stepping into their emergency communications checkout using the Deep Space Network. The Deep Space Network is...
We're picking up in step 4 of EMERCOM checkout on antenna. Well, we'll get to antenna 3 in a second.
Houston copies.
Again, this is Mission Control Houston. That communication there between NASA astronaut Reed Wiseman and the Capcom, or capsule communicator, here in Mission Control Houston, discussing the emergency communications checkout that is currently taking place. Again, that emergency communications checkout is being done connected to the Deep Space Network. The Deep Space Network is NASA's international array of giant radio antennas that support interplanetary spacecraft missions, plus a few that orbit Earth. And this Deep Space Network also provides radar and radio astronomy observations that improve our understanding of the solar system and the larger universe. During this emergency communications checkout, the crew will perform various voice tests of the emergency communication system using the Deep Space Network. This checkout is being done to ensure that if the Orion spacecraft was to lose communications, they would be able to regain communications from Mission Control Houston using this emergency comm system. In the event it lost that communications